Hi, everyone. I'm so glad you're here with me today. I'd like to talk to you about the Confident Classroom and walk you through the quick reset guide that I created that has three simple shifts that will help you support your students in the classroom. So if you'll notice on the first page inside the cover, you'll see there are problems and then there's a promise. So sometimes teaching feels really uncertain and we don't really know how to navigate some of the students that are sitting directly in front of us. And our classrooms are changing and they're evolving over time. The classroom that I was teaching 20 years ago is very different than the classroom that I have in front of me today. And sometimes it gets frustrating as a teacher because we're getting all of these initiatives that are put on our plate and we're trying to navigate the students that we have and we want to make sure that they're learning. And sometimes we just don't feel confident in what we're doing with them. So some of the things that we can do is really thinking about the idea that we don't need more content necessarily. We just need clear, repeatable strategies to really support what we're doing in the classroom to make sure that we're meeting the needs of everyone that's in front of us. So how do we do this? We want to make our lessons clearer, increase participation, and also support all of our learners so that there's more clarity, more engagement, and more confidence within the classroom. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a teacher educator. I've been in the field of education for over 20 years. It's truly my joy and passion to work with teachers and with students. And I do try to get into the field at least 1 to 2 days per week. And I absolutely love what I do. I've been doing it for a long time. And I've watched the classroom really evolve over time. And I hope that some of the strategies that I give you today, you can walk right back into your classroom with. So I'm looking forward to working with you. So let's look at shift one. So in our shift one, we're looking at how we can make objectives more student friendly. And a lot of times we're looking at our objectives that are given to us in a book. We're writing down what we're expected from, our administrative team. What does that look like on your board? What are we looking at there? So really thinking about how we support students so that they understand more about what they're learning, and it helps them really be more responsible as learners. We're putting the responsibility back on them and sort of taking it off ourselves in many ways. We want them to be much more responsible in the classroom so that they can wear the weight of their learning and be accountable. We want to hold our students accountable. And why does this matter for us? To really think about what our objectives mean for our students. Well, a lot of times the different types of kids that we have in front of us, they might be multilingual learners, they might be students with differing abilities. They might be students that are just having an off day. There's so many different kids that are in front of us on a daily basis. So really thinking about what the text means to them and some of the words that we provide within our objectives sometimes are extremely abstract to our kids and they really don't understand what they're supposed to do with that. So some of the words that they may have in front of them might be analyze, textual evidence, things like inferencing. If we break those terms down and help students really understand what they mean, then they understand what they're responsible for in your class. And it gives them an opportunity to have more buy-in. And we want our students to buy into the learning environment to be more engaged every single day. So really thinking about how we can help students understand what they are learning, why it matters, and also really knowing what success means, not just for us as the teacher, but for the students as well. What does success mean through their eyes? And I think that that can be very beneficial for our students. So, one of the shifts that we talk about and some of the advice that I would give to you is really thinking about what we are learning to do. And that's really the method I want to talk about. So you'll see on the next page, we'll talk a little bit about rewriting objectives using more student-friendly language. Instead of saying something like determining the central idea of a text, giving them the idea about what that central idea really means. So identifying the main message of the text and explaining why it matters. And these are things that are much more tangible for the students. So they understand what that expectation is. We know that they're focusing on the central idea. And over time, they're going to know that too. But we also want to present it to them in a way that makes sense so that that it's in smaller digestible pieces so that they know what they're responsible for and they can live up to that expectation. So really thinking about how you would go about doing that. And really thinking about the age of the students that are in your classroom. would a student of that particular age really understand what that concept is, what that objective is? Are there unnecessary academic terms that are within that objectives that make it less clear for them to really comprehend what it is that's expected of them? And does the objective really explain the outcome clearly? So, do students know what they have to do with that? And I think that that's the big piece of making these things more manageable for students and giving them more accessibility to the curriculum. Um, so really thinking about how you can support your students. You also notice at the bottom of each of the shifts under the expert strategies, you'll notice I give you a little reflection question. So I'd like to just direct you to that question at the bottom there for the prompt. You can pause the video if you like, or you can come back to it at a different time. But I always really believe in reflective practice. I think it makes us better as educators. Things that work right now with the students that we have in front of us, maybe doing different things within the classroom, works with the group that we have. It may not have worked with the group we had last year, may not work with the group that we have next year. So we have to really be reflective about what we're doing. And we also want to bring our skill set to the table. Are we doing a good job? Are we reaching our kids? And what's working and what's not? So really that reflective practice becomes very critical in what we do as teachers, because it is a craft. Teaching is a craft, and we get better with time, and we also get better with reflective practice. So now let's turn the page, and I'd like to direct you to shift two. And in shift two, we really think about structuring student talk. And one of the most common things I see when I go into classrooms and things I use with my students all the time as well is really thinking about that turn and talk. That's probably one of the most commonly used strategies to really get students to engage in conversation. And when we think about this turn and talk, it's very unstructured. So we're giving students a prompt, we're asking them to turn and talk, we want them to engage with one another, but oftentimes we're not making it structured. And when we're talking about students that have differing abilities, whether they're linguistic, academic, a lot of different things, processing, when we think about what that expectation is, many of our students don't know what to do with that turn and talk. And as a classroom teacher, depending on how many students you have in the classroom, whether or not you have a co-teacher or any other staff that's supporting you within the classroom and your students within the classroom, how can you move around the room to make sure every single child is on task and making sure that every student is doing what they need to do? So really thinking about how you structure that turn and talk. We want them to speak academically. How are we providing the scaffolds there for them to be able to do that? Are we giving them specific prompts? Are we giving them cards that really guide them through that process? So really thinking about how we can create routines for the students so that they know what the expectation is and they can hold themselves and their partners accountable for that type of expectation. How do we get them to that next level to really grow their language? And the truth is that every single student is learning language, whether or not English is their first language or not, no matter what language they're learning in, they're all learning language. And even for ourselves, our language is always evolving with new vocabulary and different things that come up over time. There are multiple words that are introduced to dictionaries every single year. So we want to always, really enhance the idea and really kind of think about what we're expecting students to do with language to be successful. So really thinking about that as well. And when we think about the strategies that go along with something like this turn and talk, I'd like you to consider things like using sentence frames intentionally. We can build that into that routine that we're using with the students so that we're incorporating this academic vocabulary, this content-specific vocabulary that we need for students to be able to understand and utilize within their conversations. And also thinking about how these sentence frames are setting students up for success because we're evidencing what our expectation is of the language. So a lot of times students are so inundated with technology and things on the outside, they're not necessarily using academic language and academic vocabulary to really support their conversations within the classroom. So we want to really bring that to the table for them so that they know that there is an expectation there and we are going to hold them accountable for that. And we want to create an element where students are really starting to hold themselves accountable for that. This is the expectation. For me to meet that expectation, I need to do X, Y, and Z. And these sentence frames used in an intentional manner really do support this. So I do suggest that you consider doing that when you're doing a turn and talk activity, that you're supporting the students throughout that process because it can be very helpful as they develop their language skills. Again, whether English is their first language or not, all students really benefit from that structure because every single child that we have is inundated with technology. So it can really support them throughout that process. And then we look at shift three, which is really thinking about how we add one additional layer of support. And support can be so critical and can be done in so many different ways. So many students need additional supports, and it's not just that additional support. Oftentimes, we teach to that 70% of students. And what does that really mean? That's really your average kid. A lot of times, we miss the kids that are our high flyers, and we oftentimes miss the kids that are really struggling. So, when we're thinking about these layers of support, it's not just to remediate. Layers of support can be things that can push students, propel them forward because they know the content, they know the information. How do we get them beyond where they are? Really supporting the kids that are at that average level, really to kind of grow more in their knowledge, and also the students that are struggling. How do we create those supports that can really benefit them to really learning the content and gaining access where they're at to the curriculum? So I think that that's really important for students. So, as teachers, when we're really thinking about how we can support our students by adding these layers of support, we want to think about how we can be proactive in that. So, where do we think students might be needing a push forward? Where do we think students might be struggling a little bit within a lesson? How do we create those points of reference to really build out those strategies and those scaffolds to support the students? So, really thinking about that. And that might be something as simple as providing a vocabulary preview where you're giving students more visual access to the vocabulary that's going to be included in a lesson. Really thinking about the visuals, but not just pretty visuals. We want to think about how we're utilizing visuals to really enhance the instruction, to really enhance the comprehension of the overall topic. Are we giving students guided notes where they're filling in different pieces so that we ensure that they're really understanding the overall gist of what we're teaching? How do we chunk directions in ways that we make sure that students understand what they are responsible for doing? And how do we get them to really either feed off of one another or have other students really explain to them what they need to accomplish so that they know that they're on the right track? And also doing things like modeling, things like utilizing graphic organizers to break down information, and really thinking about how we can utilize all these different types of strategies and scaffolds to really support the students. And we'll notice also is that what these types of supports do is they really build our students' capacity, giving them more and more confidence about what they're doing in the classroom and how they're learning and how well they're succeeding within their environment. And how you're creating this classroom environment where students are more of a community, where they're supporting one another, helping each other. Although we like competition, I think competition is good. We also want to create a little of that as well. But we want students to really see, oh, I see the student is struggling a little bit. Maybe I can help them while students are working together in groups, or whether or not students are working independently, they notice that another student might be struggling with something. That's the type of community that we want to be thinking about, because a community of learners is where we really structure the environment so students are stepping in to help one another, identifying when another student might need more support, and whether they can do it or not, just giving them that capacity where they feel like, oh, helping each other is a good thing. We want that. We want to support one another. We don't want to just turn our face and just pretend that something's not happening. We want them to engage with one another. So there are a lot of different really amazing things that we we can do to really support our students and help us as instructors, as teachers, as educators to really think about how we can help ourselves build their confidence and feel good about what they're doing, because in turn that allows us to feel really good about what we're doing as teachers. And there's nothing worse than going home at the end of the day saying, I don't know if I really reached all of my kids today. And when they're confident in what they're doing, it helps build that confidence for yourself. So you're leaving less frequently feeling like, I don't know if I got to all of them today, because that's the reality of teaching. It's the reality of being in a classroom of diverse learners. You know, there are some kids that are really truly going to get it, and other kids that you might need to work with a little bit more the next day to help them get through the information that you're teaching them, because they need that additional support. So really thinking about how you can utilize these three shifts to build confidence across the board, I think is very beneficial. So I hope that these three tips were very helpful for you. I do hope that you go back and you answer those three reflection questions, one under each of the shifts. Not a huge amount of work, just to kind of have some food for thought to support you within your classroom. I mentioned to you also is that you don't have to figure this all out alone. When I think about myself starting teaching over 20 years ago, the classroom was very different, you know, and today it's very complex. You have a big shift in our populations of multilingual learners. We have a large shift in different types of students that are in front of us. So really thinking about, you know, what you're expected to do every day. There's a huge amount of things on your plate. And sometimes we feel overwhelmed and tired and not sure and all these different things. And so what I've done is I've created a 30-day journal with very small prompts to kind of get you moving along in really thinking about how you're supporting your multi dimensional classes, your multilingual learners, your diverse learners, all of the different things that are going on. I like to say the word multidimensional because you know, anything is happening. There's so many different things that are going on in our classrooms, and multi-dimensional is what I feel like kind of encompasses a lot of that. So really thinking about what you're doing on a daily basis. I really want you to feel good about the kids that are in front of you, and I want you to feel really good about what you do every single day because it's so important. You're doing really amazing work, really important work. And my hope is that over the next 30 days, if you decide to join me on this journey, I think you'll be able to kind of unravel some of the things that you're doing and feel better about the students that are in front of you and how you can really get them to engage more, to participate more, to really just be in a place of feeling good about what they're doing in your classroom. So thanks for all you do. I'm so excited. And if you're interested, please just click the button your on your freebie that I sent out to you. And I look forward to working with you and hearing from you. Talk soon.